Hey friends, it's Kari from the Alford Homestead, and today I just wanted to show you what we were up to the last week or two. Aside from being sick, we still had to get to our chores. The show must go on, and so the first task that we needed to go ahead and tackle was to move our chickens. So I have never shown you guys this before. I thought I'd go ahead and show you the quick setup and how we go ahead and give them fresh pasture every 4 to 6 weeks. So we have a Premier One electric fence. I will link that below in the description box in case you want to go to the website and check it out. We have had this fence for 2 years and we love it. We've never had any big issues with it and it's been really effective. So right now the chickens are in one half of the summer garden and we wanted to kind of move them to cover another quarter of the garden plot. So they're going to overlap their plots a little bit because we have those compost heaps that we're working on right now. So what we do is these poles have 3 to 4 inch stakes that we put in the ground. Now, since we just got rain, this makes the process a little bit easier. Sometimes the ground is really compact, and then we need to take a mallet to the top of those poles to get them into the ground. But in any case, right now, we just take 2 or 3 poles at a time and work our way in the direction that we want to move the chickens. And another option would be to keep your chickens in the coop. Don't let them out that morning, and then go ahead and just move the entire fence. In that case, that's better if you want to move them to a completely new area. But as it is, we didn't want to move them completely off to another zone in the garden. We wanted to keep them in the summer garden in particular. So we're just going to kind of like work our way over a little bit. So you can see where my husband is forming that new line, and that brought it in about halfway through the summer garden. And I'll show you guys what this whole thing looks like after we're all said and done. I'm just kind of showing you how we work, kind of go back and forth, back and forth. It takes a lot of adjusting, and it takes probably a good 20 to 25 minutes to just mess around with the poles and get them taut and get them in the right position. Because you don't want them hanging and loose, you want them nice and firm and secure where they're at. Another thing you want to keep in mind with these electric fences is that you can't have this fence in high grass. So if you're moving them to a totally new area on your pasture that has really tall grass, then you're going to have to mow that part of the pasture down. You can't have this fence constantly being set off, the electric part of it being set off by the tall grass. So my husband's just moving the rabbits right now. They're also on the summer garden. Again, we're just trying to get as much of the animals on the summer garden as possible while it's not in use. We're trying to replenish our soil, and this is how we're doing that. So we did buy these extra plastic stakes. These do not come with the fence. You can buy this separately, and I highly recommend it because it helps stabilize the corners of your fence. So we kind of generally keep to a squared up fence so that way we can keep everything nice and taut. You can see in the back the fence is kind of leaning a little bit. That's what these poles help do. So you can see my husband is just taking a mallet there and kind of getting that further into the ground to help support the fence. So I recommend using those poles, one on every corner. So generally we stick to a rectangle type shape. You could also buy more and do like a circle if you're so inclined to do that with your property. In any case, we're just going ahead and move the back now. We had to take off the lines from the trellis to go ahead and do that. And we will be taking this trellis system down. Actually, that's going to be a whole other video of why we're changing our system, our trellis system, after 3 years of using this same trellis system. But in any case, we're going to go ahead and move their coop now. My husband just popped on these wheels, and we're going to go ahead and move them just a little bit so that they're in a fresh area. this coop starts to smell when they've been pooping in there and sitting in there and sleeping in there for a month at a time. So he's just going to go ahead and move that really quick. And you can see the compost piles in the back. That's where we wanted to keep the fence because we're going to add at least another 2 compost piles, and we want them to be right next to each other. And at the same time, still being worked on by the chickens. That's why we didn't want to move them completely to a new area. We are still wanting them to work on the older compost piles while also starting new ones. So if you haven't seen my video on the chicken compost ring, go check it out because that gives you a better idea of what we're doing. It's a 30-day compost system, and that's why we're moving our chickens the way we're moving them. So you can see that they're already going in on all of this old grass. This all had our tomatoes in it, our peppers in it, all kinds of summer garden goodness. And they're just gonna go ahead and go through that and mow that completely down for us while simultaneously reintroducing nitrogen and fixing that soil for us. So again, I'll leave all the information for the fence and all the accessories for the fence in the description box below. If you guys want to know about the whole battery setup, how we keep the battery charged and what battery we use, let me know in the comments down below. That's a whole nother process in and of itself, but if you guys want to see that, let me know in the comments below. So now that we've basically got the chickens in their new home, we wanted to go ahead and start a new compost ring. So my husband's just going to go ahead and flip that old compost pile, and then we're going to start a new one in its place. This second compost pile was pretty much just with dried leaves, with dead leaves. And it compacted so fast. It doesn't look like a lot, but trust me, when he gets it all in a pile, look, it's massive. It's a big pile. And this pile had a lot of grain still left in it. So this was another bonus about having these compost piles still being in the chicken area, is that the leftover grain, because we're feeding these chickens, they're getting their grain from this compost ring. We're pouring their grain right in the ring as an incentive to work on that compost. But I'll give you a close up in a second. You can see that a lot of that grain in there has sprouted. Whatever they didn't peck at and get to by scratching and pecking over time ended up sprouting, right? So now we've got more grain, more food, more protein for our chickens that they're gonna love, and they're gonna continue to work on that compost by scratching it and pecking at it and eating all the bits and pieces out of it that there is. So not only are we saving money on grain and compost, but we're creating like this super compost that's just alive and thriving and perfect for a garden. So I actually went ahead and had my husband take about half of this pile. That way I could have a row for my garlic. I needed to go ahead and plant garlic already. I'm already kind of behind. I planted 2 rows of onions already. On the left, you can see that's where I planted those. And then I just wanted to get one more row raked out for my garlic bulbs. I didn't want to do like a whole year supply of garlic. I've never planted garlic like this before, so I wasn't really sure how much I wanted to do. I ended up going ahead and just planting about 75 cloves of garlic here, which is more than enough. And I am using that partially finished compost. It still could have used another week, but for garlic cloves, it's perfectly fine. It's not, super composted down and perfect yet, but it'll be fine for just some garlic cloves. So I ended up not even having to use half of that pile for this row, which was nice. I only ended up using maybe a quarter of that pile that you guys saw with the chickens. And my garlic wasn't really sprouted. I had a few that were sprouted, but no worries. I went ahead and popped them in the ground as they were. They'll be totally fine. All right, so the next thing I needed to get done, I had these cherry tomatoes, the last few from this year. These are like a tiger stripe cherry tomato. I don't know. They were amazing, whatever they were. They were my favorite cherry tomato out of the garden this year. So I wanted to go ahead and save some seeds. I have a ton of tomato seeds, but I figured let me go ahead and save a couple of these for next year. So what I did was I just sliced them in half really quick and squeezed everything out onto this napkin. So the pulp and the seeds all got squeezed out. And then I went ahead and put them into a container. Use whatever container you want, glass, plastic, didn't really matter. Um, what the point is that you need to ferment your seeds. Tomato seeds aren't ones that you can just dry and keep for next year. You want to break down tomato seeds, that covering over them that protects the seed needs to be broken down, and in order to do that we need to kind of ferment the seeds almost. So you just want to put, a couple of tablespoons of water. I've only got a couple dozen seeds here, so it's not that much water. If you have more, use more. If you have a big tomato, sometimes you wouldn't even need to add water. You would have enough water from the tomato itself. Put it away for 2 or 3 days until you see like a scum or like a mold forming on the top. So this was after about 4 or 5 days just sitting there in my pantry. You can see there's a little bit of mold growing around it now. So I'm just gonna go ahead and pour it out. You can just do this on anything you want, a napkin. I just used a quick towel that I had on hand. And I'm just gonna go ahead and collect those seeds, and then they can just dry, and then you can store them long term. So that'll be a nice boon for next year's garden. And of course, no October is complete without a pumpkin carving involved. So my girls are helping us here. And don't worry, all of the pulp and those beautiful seeds went to the chickens. Pumpkin seeds are amazing dewormers for chickens. Not that we're concerned about it, but it's always a nice special treat for the chickens either way. Well, I hope you guys had a wonderful October and a wonderful Halloween if you celebrate it. We certainly did, even though we were all still recovering from being sick. But that's okay. That's how it goes with a family of 5. Once one goes down, we all go down together. All right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed that video, and we'll see you guys next time.